This video dives into the importance of personal initiative and independent research when engaging with the legal and financial system. This emphasizes the role of historical laws, such as the 1666 Cestui Que Vie Act, the Alien Registration Act of 1940, and birth certificate registration. Their guidance encourages a practical, self-driven understanding of these laws, urging listeners to look up specific federal and state statutes, agencies, and documentation processes. Provides instructions on investigating the significance of birth certificates, selective service registration, and various financial regulatory bodies like the Federal Trade Commission, Federal Reserve System, and National Credit Union Administration. This list serves as a guide to understanding what they view as a financial trust or system in which individuals unknowingly participate. The message concludes by stressing the importance of unity in action and persistence. By uniting in research and understanding, individuals can, according to the speaker, better navigate, assert their rights, and even potentially reclaim a measure of autonomy within this complex system. The term Cestui Que Vie, pronounced Cestui Que Vie, is a legal concept originating from French law and used in common law contexts, specifically in trust law. It refers to the person for whom property or a trust is held, typically when a trustee holds property or rights on behalf of another. The Cestui Que Vie Trust, or beneficiary trust, protects and manages the interests of individuals who cannot directly hold certain property or rights due to legal or financial barriers. The Cestui Que Vie Act, first passed in 1666 in England, was historically used to manage the property of people who were absent or presumed dead, allowing trustees to administer their property on their behalf. Under this law, a person presumed dead but still alive could reappear to reclaim their property and rights, providing a legal framework for resurrecting their status. In modern interpretations and discussions, particularly in sovereign and financial freedom movements, Cestui Que Vie trusts are sometimes mentioned as a way governments and institutions might manage individuals' rights and assets, particularly through birth certificates or similar documentation, although this remains a debated and often legally ambiguous area. The Alien Registration Act of 1940, also known as the Smith Act, was a U.S. federal law primarily aimed at requiring non-citizens, aliens, to register with the federal government. Enacted during a period of heightened concerns about national security prior to World War II, the Act introduced several important measures, including registration and fingerprinting. All non-citizens over 14 years of age residing in the United States were required to register with the government and be fingerprinted. This created an official record of all aliens in the country, which was maintained by the Immigration and Naturalization Service, INS, now part of the Department of Homeland Security. Criminal penalties for sedition. The Act included provisions criminalizing the advocacy of the overthrow of the U.S. government by force or violence. It specifically targeted activities considered seditious, such as encouraging violent insurrection or promoting ideologies that sought to subvert government authority. Legal obligations. Non-citizens were required to report any changes of address, with failure to comply potentially resulting in deportation or legal action. This allowed authorities to closely monitor foreign nationals within the U.S. Impact on freedom of speech and association. The Act also led to the prosecution of many individuals, particularly those affiliated with communist or socialist organizations, under its provisions against advocating government overthrow. The law was used heavily in the 1940s and 1950s against perceived political subversives, including members of leftist organizations. The Alien Registration Act of 1940 was controversial because it raised concerns about freedom of speech and association, particularly in its application against political groups. Though some parts of the Act have been modified or rendered obsolete, its impact on surveillance and national security policies persists in later legislation aimed at regulating non-citizens in the U.S. The Cestui Que Vie Act of 1666 is a historic British law enacted during the reign of King Charles II. This act, passed by the English Parliament in response to a crisis during the Great Plague of London, was primarily designed to address issues related to property rights, inheritance, and the legal standing of people presumed dead after disappearing during the Plague and Great Fire. Here are the main components of the Act. Purpose: The Cestui Que Vie Act was originally intended to address property and inheritance issues when a person was missing and presumed dead. Cestui Que Vie translates from French to the person for whose life, the property, is held. Under the Act, if someone disappeared and was presumed dead, their assets could be placed in a type of trust or temporarily managed by the state. Presumption of death. The Act allowed the state or any interested party, usually family or heirs, to declare a missing person dead if they had not been heard from for 7 years. This allowed the management of their estates and assets to pass on to heirs or be handled by trustees. Legal implications. If the missing person were to reappear, they could reclaim their property. However, without any evidence to the contrary, they were considered dead in absentia, which provided a legal framework for families and the state to manage estates that would otherwise be left in limbo. Historical context. The Act emerged from the need to manage estates and property efficiently during a period of high mortality due to plague, social unrest, and the Great Fire of London. Many people had fled or gone missing, leaving unresolved legal and financial issues. Modern usage and interpretation. Although the Act is very old, it has influenced concepts related to trusts, estate law, and the handling of missing persons' estates. In the 20th and 21st centuries, similar principles are invoked in cases involving the estates of people who have been missing for extended periods. The Cestui Que Vie Act of 1666 is one of the early examples of English laws dealing with trusts and estates, and it laid the groundwork for modern practices surrounding the legal management of missing persons' assets. In modern law, these principles have evolved significantly, though this act remains a point of reference in discussions around trust law and property rights for individuals absent under uncertain circumstances.